So today's review is going to be of the AKG K7XX, a massdrop collaboration, open back headphone with AKG, and this comes in at around 200 US dollars. This is a bit of a retro review because it's a headphone that has been around for a long time, but I think it is worth reviewing because it is still a competitive headphone overall. However, it does have some flaws which I think competitors do better on. So starting off with the build. The build on this headphone is pretty decent actually. It is one of those headphones which is made from a lot of plastic. However, you get the feeling that it's one of those headphones that won't break very easily. So I can do stuff like this and be pretty confident with it. However, if I try to do that with a Sennheiser headband or a Headphone headband, I'll be quite scared of breaking it. Furthermore, you get a lot of cup articulation here. It is a bit of a floating hinge, so you can rotate in any direction you want, so that's always great. The headband itself is a leather strap with a elastic band height adjustment, and this is one of the problems I have with this headphone build because these bands do loosen up over time, and it makes it so that over time the headband will lose its tension, which is a problem. And furthermore, the headband itself has two pieces of spring steel across the top, and that makes these very flexible, so that's always a good thing. As for the connectors, you get a mini XLR connector on one side, and it comes with a extraordinarily long straight cable, which is okay. I prefer it more than a coiled cable. However, I would have liked for them to include a slightly shorter cable for desktop use. So these headphones come with memory foam velour wrapped ear pads, which on paper sounds extremely comfortable. However, in practice, these pads are actually very stiff. And I thought that it's one of those memory foams that loosen up with heat, and it did a little bit, but it still remained really hard and stiff against my head. Over time, I got a bit of a headache from wearing these, so these are not the most comfortable headphones. I'd say that both Sennheisers and Headphones, such as the 4XX, are more comfortable than these, so a bit of a disappointment because I think these had potential to be really, really comfortable. The headband itself, I've heard of some people complain about hotspots around there, but personally I haven't had any issues with hotspots wearing this headphone, so the headband overall is pretty good. The sound of this headphone is a bit of an oddball. It is warm, but at the same time it can be bright at times, and the mid-range is definitely pushed forward. So starting off with the bass. This headphone's bass is probably the weakest area. I'd say that in terms of bass, this does not extend as well as a 4XX, almost extends about as well as a HD 600 and 650. However, this does have substantially more mid bass and upper bass than both of those Sennheiser models, as well as a Headphone. And so you do get the impression that these do slam a lot. However, the quality of the bass is quite poor from what I've heard. The bass at times seems like it's almost at the point of distortion. However, this headphone never strays into that territory. But at the same time, you hear that these headphones are really struggling with the bass. It sounds like the driver is being pushed to the limits of what it can do. And that's not really a good thing because in certain bass heavy tracks, I really feel like this headphone struggles keeping up with the slam as well as the delivery of the bass. Furthermore, the bass hump in the upper bass and the mid bass extends way too far into lower mids, and I feel that sometimes the bass does seem to intrude a little bit into the lower mids, which is not a good thing. And moving on to the mid-range, on these headphones are emphasized. It is a bit of an odd mid-range because there is that lower mid emphasis which stems in from that broad hump in the mid bass and upper bass. However, there is also a clear rise in the 2K region, which means that a lot of vocals do come through with forwardness. However, I don't think it sounds as good as a Sennheiser's forward mid-range, so that is a bit of a letdown there. And furthermore, in terms of upper mids, there is a clear recession around 3 to 4K, and that kind of kills upper mid-range a little bit. So some female vocals might seem a lot more muted than you might normally expect with a headphone that measures closer to the Harman target, for example. Furthermore, in the treble in this headphone is a bit uneven. I'd say that there is at times where this headphone sounds peaky, and that might be due to peaks at 12K and a bit of extra energy at 6.5K. However, there are times that I feel like the headphone struggles to do a well-extended treble, and I don't think that's the headphone's fault. I have a feeling it's more to do with the fact that there's such a broad mid-bass emphasis that it kind of overshadows the treble a little bit, which is disappointing. Overall, for detail, I'd say that this headphone sits around on par with the 4XX. However, the 4XX has a much better bass detail. This headphone has a bit better mid-range detail than the 4XX, and I'd say that overall, the Sennheiser has the K7XX beat out in detail in pretty much every category, including the bass, because the bass on this, while it definitely has more authority and punch, really sounds like it's pushing the limits of the driver, so I'm not a big fan of that. As for soundstage, I'd say that this headphone sounds reasonably wide. It has good width, and I really thought this is a great gaming headphone. If you think of budget gaming headphones, a lot of people seem to gravitate towards a 58X or something like the 4XX. I really think that the K7XX is probably a better option than those two headphones because it is wider and also has about on par imaging with the 4XX, which is pretty much good enough for most gaming scenarios. And the width really helps with certain genres of music, such as classical or orchestral music. And with those genres, which don't rely on as much bass, this headphone performs remarkably well, and those are probably my favorite genres to listen to with this headphone. So if you are someone that listens to a lot of music that doesn't have enormous amounts of bass or drums, the K7XX might be an excellent choice to look into because the mid-range forwardness does help with some instruments and give them that extra bit of sweetness that a lot of headphones which sound more analytical are missing. And on top of that, dynamics in this headphone are okay. I'd say that it is worse than a 600 and 650 in terms of dynamics and about on par with a 4XX. However, I will say that the bass dynamics are better on a 4XX than these, so these aren't nowhere near your focal levels of dynamics. So that's to be expected though for something of this price. Overall, I'd say that this is a headphone that is worth a consideration. It's probably the most overlooked of the mass drop trio of the 6XX, the 4XX, and the K7XX. However, I do think there are certain things that the K7XX does better than those two headphones, namely soundstage and also playing well to orchestral and more grand sounding genres.